how I managed working while being a surrogate. So I worked in a very busy, fast-paced pre-op clinic. And so like I was always on my feet, I was always moving, I was always talking to people, which I loved. It kept me busy, it kept me active, it kept my body moving, and I was, still able to push a gurney with a patient on it when I was 8.5 months pregnant. And I think that was really helpful. But I also feel like working while I was a surrogate was pretty rewarding too, because the number of people that I got to meet who would say something about, especially when I was visibly pregnant, who would say something about me being pregnant. Oh my gosh, you're having a baby, congrats. You get the usuals and stuff. And I would just I would be like, yeah, but it's not my baby. And then of course you get people who are like, come again? So it was kind of funny seeing their reaction to when I would say stuff like that. And then they would kind of think that it was a joke, and then they'd be like, oh, haha. And I'd be like, no, really, it's not my baby. I'm actually a surrogate. I'm carrying a baby for another family. And then their faces would just light up. And I loved that. I loved going to work and seeing, people that needed repeat surgeries, and they would be like, how's baby? How are you? Are you so excited? Are you making plans to see the parents anytime soon? Just stuff like that. So I think it was important also that I had a really good support system through my job. I actually made one of my best friends at my job. So she was there for me a lot. And it was really nice to have that home away from home feeling, like when I got home, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, the weight of the world, just lifted because I left work. I honestly loved going to work. And so the fact that I got to share my experience and, give information about things that were not super talked about, I loved that part too. Just being informative. People would ask me all kinds of questions like, is it your egg? Is it, a sperm donor? It just stuff like that. And so it was nice to be able to give them the information that they were lacking and didn't really know when it came to surrogacy. So working really wasn't any different for me versus my own pregnancy. The only difference is that people would comment about it. I would just say, yeah, but it's not my baby. And like I said, their faces just lit up, and that made me light up. And it made me feel really good when people would be like, you're such a blessing to this family. You're doing such an amazing thing. You're changing somebody's complete and total world. Just that affirmation was really nice, and going in and seeing new people and being able to share that with them. And then of course, just being able to leave the house, not having to be stuck in the same place day in and day out was nice too. So I think that working during pregnancy of any sort is nice because it keeps you busy, it keeps you moving out of the house, doing things. So I think that really helped me with that pregnancy.